everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to Dr. Judy WTF What the Freud. And tonight's episode is titled The Herder Cannot Be the Healer Unless. And I'm going to elaborate on that. And there was an episode I did back in the day called The Herder Can't Be the Healer. And it's the true meaning of the WTF, or the what the Freud, and why we repeat things and why we keep getting ourselves in the same hot mess in relationships and all kinds of patterns with bosses and friends and coworkers and on and on and on. And truly at the core, we want to heal. It's just that the way we go about it is very unconscious. So part of my job tonight is to lift the veil of the unconscious and expose it so that you can get conscious and be the cause of a better outcome for your life, and stop repeating the WTF. Stop repeating the patterns that keep taking you down into chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. And as usual, we are going to mind map all of this process so that you can clearly see it. I still believe that a picture's worth 1,000 words. And so I have a picture that I created, which is my system for healing. And it is called the Be the Cause Mind Map. And it's predicated on childhood wounds, how we react to them, how we encode all of the messages from our primary caregivers and primary people in our lives, how these get triggered into chaos, defenses, and breakdowns, and how to morph out of all the mess. So this is a call-in show, everybody, and please do call in. And the number is up there, and please feel free to use another name to keep your privacy. My intention is not to break your privacy by asking you what your name is, but simply to refer to you as somebody that we can call, put a name to, so that we can have a conversation. So what is the meaning behind WTF? What the Freud? Well, Sigmund Freud, created a term called the repetition compulsion. The repetition principle is about repeating patterns. And why do we do this? Why do we do the broken record repeat of patterns? Because we're stuck in a groove. We're stuck in this broken record groove, and no matter what we do unconsciously, what we do is we can't get out of it because we're trying to repair something. But you know how it is. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, it is the definition of insanity. But on the other hand, we truly are trying to get out of the trap. So this is sort of how this storyboard goes on the what the Freud. So let's say that you have had the childhood injury of neglect, which is a very painful injury indeed to have. And parents neglected you. Let's say that you were a latchkey kid. I'm sorry, I still have this post-COVID, I guess it's called long COVID, really a little irritating, so bear with me. So let's say that you have this kind of a disconnect from your parents, and now you are dating and wanting to pursue relationships. And so what might happen, and oftentimes does, is that you create a relationship with a similar dynamic, a similar type of person who is going to injure you in a similar way. And so you're thinking, well, why would I do that? I'm not crazy. Well, no, you're not crazy. It's just that you're trying to repair something that didn't work out with your family of origin unconsciously. And so that way, if you go back into the wounder or a similar type of wounder, then you get to play it again, and you get to hopefully convert this person from a wounder or a herder to a healer. And so again, this is a call-in show, and I really would like to hear from you and how it is that your herder came into your life and why that person came into your life. And let's go back again over the original blueprint so that you could see how this goes down. So if you would put up the mind map, you could see panel number 1, wounds of childhood. Well, I discussed 5, and then there's the 6th one called the narcissistic wound, which I'll go into. And these wounds include physical abuse, obviously, that's a wound, sexual abuse, very obvious, neglect, emotional neglect, physical neglect, again, obvious, control and smothering, again, a wound that sometimes people don't understand as a wound, but it is when somebody's trying to control you, manipulate you, smother you, very wounding. And then the other one is when you have a narcissistic parent who turns the system around, and instead of nurturing you, you end up nurturing them. Instead of being your primary caregiver, they use and manipulate you to fulfill on their agenda. So these abuses and neglects are very, very important to understand about your psyche. So there are the abuses, which is what is done to you, and the neglects is what is not done for you. Both are very injurious. I brought up the neglect one because this is something that I see very, very often in the treatment room, where people will complain about their partners neglecting them. And although there are no bruises in the dynamics of neglect, there are internal bruises. And these internal bruises are very, very painful. Just as an example, when you get into the prison system, the most brutal type of punishment is not being hit, but it's actually being thrown into the hole, which is the isolation cell, where you don't get physical or emotional contact. And this is the one that people most often cannot tolerate, is being cut off. And if you remember the title of my book, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect, which you can all get a copy of. Please download, get your PDF copy. If you haven't already, all you have to do is enter your email and we will send it to you. And of course, you can also order this on Amazon.com. And you can also order the Mind Map video series, which I created, which will take you on a journey, and best done with a therapist. And at least it's a psychoeducational process that will break down the mind map so that you can see exactly the process and then apply it to your life. So you can learn how to think like a shrink and how to break down your mind a la mind map. So you can see how painful it is when you've been injured, and you're not going to repair, or in your psyche, you're not going to repair with somebody who is the nice guy or the nice girl, because they're nice guys and girls, women, men. So that's not where the repair actually is located in the psyche. The thought is, well, let's go back over it and let's convert the not so nice person into a nice person, and then I will gain my esteem back, or I will gain back all of the horrible beliefs I have about myself in the world. And this is where the mind map is so essential, because of course people know what traditional therapy is, and many of you have gone through traditional therapy. And my issue with it is that it's not deep rooted enough to go back to the cause of the problem. And if you're just behavior modifying, if you're only medicating, if you're only manipulating cognitions, it's just not enough. And the mind map actually does address cognitions. And of course, if you need to be on medication, by all means, be on medication. It's just that it's always best to go to the root cause of the problem, because unless we uproot the cause, we're going to keep generating symptom after symptom after symptom. Why? It's because a poor analogy, but maybe a good one here, is if there's something wrong with your car, it's going to keep squeaking and blinking and making all kinds of signals and noises and so on until you pay attention. And then once you discover the cause of the problem, then you're going to stop just treating the symptoms and turning off the flashing lights or pouring some oil on some problem that lies deeper than that. So it's the same thing with the human psyche. You can't just fix things by fixing symptoms. And besides, symptoms are very, very clever and they will morph. And so if you have a symptom of OCD, for example, it might morph into a different type of OCD. And if you have a symptom of, for example, overeating, and you simply treat that symptom, then you might convert that symptom into something else. And why is that so? Because at the foundational level, people have what I refer to as a hole in the soul. And some people have a big one. So what do I mean by this hole in the soul is that there's something that wasn't healed in there. And specifically, it might be something that wasn't provided by your family of origin. If we go back to Bowlby and his entire view on attachment theory, which I think is essential to study for the mental health of yourself and the next generation. Dr. John Bowlby and his associate, Dr. Mary Ainsworth, did research on people, children specifically, after the war, and found that those who did not have a connection with a primary caregiver were in emotional trouble, became troubled people. Either they were anxious, or they were avoidant, or they were in some cases psychotic. But the point is that he really, really illustrated the importance of attachment. And so if you didn't get all of that foundational good enough attachment via eye contact, ideally breastfeeding, ideally stay-at-home mothering, ideally mother and father, primary caregivers who stay together and nurture each other and support each other, then you typically don't get the best of the best. And then moving forward, you don't move forward very well at all. As a matter of fact, you move, I just invented this in my head right now, you kind of move forward backwards. So you move forward, but you're really taking the dynamics from the past into your forward. So you're dragging the old history into the here and now and into the future, and then into the next generation, which is why I make a big deal about parents healing before they have children. So again, this is a call-in show. I would love to hear from you, and I would love to mind map what the Freud you're doing with the repetition principle. And I did make the title a little bit different than the other YouTube episode I did, which is called The Herder Can't Be the Healer. So obviously the herder can't be the healer because that herder is hurt, doesn't have the psychological wherewithal to self-reflect and self-correct and heal the situation, unless ... And I'd love to hear from you. What do you think the unless is? And maybe you could type that into the notes, or you could call in and tell me your best guess on it. And I'll give you guys a moment to best guess this. But there is an unless. It's a rare unless, but nevertheless, it is an unless ... So what do you think that might be? And Tony, if somebody wants to put an answer in that chat room, go ahead and read it off, and we'll do that. Take some answers here, some guesses if you want to call in and take a stab at this answer. I would love to hear from you. It's a deep answer, and it's not an obvious one, and it takes a lot of work. And so, anybody have some guess as to what that might be? The unless. Anybody in the chat room want to take a stab at it?
People are talking, so let's just see if they ask a question or leave a comment.
Okay.
And somebody says, what's the question again? Maybe they missed it. So go ahead and ask the question again.
The question is, the herder, in other words, the person that you next choose into your relationship that's doomed to hurt you will never heal you because they themselves are unhealed. So, what's the unless? The herder can't be the healer unless. Does anybody have an answer out there? And please call in. I'd love to hear from you. Because one of my goals with you, my audience, my wonderful audience, many of you who have seen me over and over again, is that you guys want to heal and you want to think like a shrink and you want to understand what the Freud is going on with your life and why is it that you're repeating things and hurting yourselves over and over. So I want you to start thinking so that you can learn and that you can apply this information to your life so that you don't get into panels number 4, 5, 6, which represent chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. So we all know about chaos because chaos is the life we live when we're not healed, and it's the life we live when we get triggered and we get disoriented from how life hits us, whether it be emotional chaos, financial chaos, relationship chaos, spiritual chaos, or any other kind of chaos that you could think of. And if you look at the panel number 4, you can see that the bonds are broken, people are flying off into space, there's a lot of toxicity in the air. So you can see that the mind map is very metaphorical in nature, and panel 4 represents that whatever system was built went wrong, fell apart, and fell into chaos. And nobody wants to be in chaos. So what do? They try to defend against the chaos. So they'll fill their hole in the soul with what I proverbially refer to as drugs, sex, rock, and roll. So you might fill it with sex addiction or alcohol, or you might fill it with overeating or checking out, or you might fill it with toxic people. But then again, it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Because it's not sustainable and it's not really going to repair anything. So as much as we try to fill that hole and defend against it, it ends up breaking down. And at the Psychological Healing Center, we show you step by step how to take the breakdown to the through to the breakthrough, which is where you want to go, so that you shift out, paradigm shift out of it, and start to recode and heal. So anybody want to take a guess at why the herder can't be the healer, and what's the unless? The herder can't be the healer unless something happens. Any answers in the chat room? Or
well, I'm going to read what some of our amazing people in the chat room wrote. Maria said they get healed themselves.
They get killed themselves?
That's what. Yep, that's what she said. Always learning. It says they are willing to heal along with you. Up 3 said it's yourself. And then Angela says, unless the couple wants to heal individually first.
I love these answers. Right on. I have a really smart audience that has been listening and processing. Thank you, Maria and Angela. And who was the other person?
You have always learning, and then
always learning.
Up 3.
Always learning. So your answers are correct.
And then I think Rocio, unless this was actually a question. Unless the herder heals? Question mark.
That's where I was going with it, and all the answers were in that direction, because unless the two of them go into individual therapy. So oftentimes I'll have a couple come in and say, or I'll have an individual person come in and say, look, I'm married, and it's really a destructive relationship, and I want therapy. Well, my number one choice would be to have both of them come in and do individual therapy on both of them, with the couple therapy weaving through the individual sessions. Correct. We want people to heal individually so that they can be a better we. You can't take an injured me and another injured me and put it together and have a very good outcome. It just is not going to work that way, because what happens when you have two injured people, let's say you have somebody who's a codependent and latching on to somebody who has very narcissistic qualities, no healing is going to go on there, none at all. So there's no paradigm shift. There's no panel 789 accessible to people who don't work on themselves individually and heal. So to answer the question, which you guys have, the herder can't be the healer unless the herder heals. Okay? And the herder can't be the healer can be also interpreted as you're the herder. You yourself are hurting yourself. So you, as now the herder of yourself, can't heal unless you heal yourself, and then stop the madness and stop the what the Freud, and stop picking people who are herders. There is a profound desire to heal our childhood wounds. And so what people do is they move forward and pick the same dynamic with their partner. And so, as I said to one of my patients today, instead of going forward, go backward, clean up the past so that you can go forward. Okay, I hope this is making sense to everybody. It's very, very important. You can't go forward unless you've cleaned, learned, shifted, healed your cracked lens of perception, with one of the terms that I use in my book, which means that you now heal the distortions that you have been laden with, that the distortions from childhood that lead you to believe horrible things like horrible core beliefs like you're not lovable, not good enough, not worthy, and so on and so forth. Because if you don't source these horrific core beliefs, you will end up in relationships where you will absolutely feel all those feelings again: unworthy, unlovable, not good enough, ugly, stupid, and on and on and on and on. So again, we have to go backwards in order to go forwards. What happens if we don't go backwards is that we end up with this cracked lens of perception about ourselves, struggling to put the cure into a new herder's hands that will only re-injure us. And we're driven, we're so driven to heal. It's just that unconsciously we're picking the pathway that's going to hurt us most. To me, this is a fascinating concept, because you think that logic would win out, and you think that logic would say, oh, been there, done that, not going to do that again. Well, I suppose some people can learn from their mistakes, as you say. It's just that it's very, very hard to learn from your unconscious mistakes. It's easier to learn from conscious mistakes. So if you're in a math class, it's easy to learn that if you say that 1 + 1 = 3, someone can actually show you, they could show you two pencils and put them together and show you how to count them out. So it adds up to two and not three. Now, that's what I call logic. Now, psychologic has its own brand of logic, and it is not logical. Okay, it's not formulaic in terms of the logical track. The psychologic is that which makes us psycho. So we will believe things that are distorted, and those core beliefs are sort of the outcome of the distortion. So these core beliefs that we have programmed into us by the blueprint, which I call the primary caregivers, usually our mothers and our fathers, we buy into that. We buy in so deeply because they're the boss, they're the source, they're the generators of our view of ourselves and our world, because we look into our parents' eyes to self-define. We don't know who we are until our parents smile at us, and then we get a sense that we're lovable, or we're important enough, or we're special to our parents. Now, if they are not even giving us eye contact, if they're ignoring us, well, these messages are coming through, and they may not necessarily be verbal messages. They indeed start as pre-verbal messages, because it's that intricate dance between the mother and the baby that is that mirroring attunement process that is the good enough parenting that allows the baby to form a healthy sense of dependence, so that they can eventually begin to separate and individuate from the mother. And it is the secondary caregiver, usually father, who is there as a backbone, as part of the family system, to nurture the nurturer, so that the family system can be like a trickle down system, where the mother and the father support each other. The father is there for the mother as she is giving birth, for example, and there for the mother when she is taking care of her baby. And then through this system gone right, there's a trickle down effect. And that trickle down effect is then the baby's the happy beneficiary of this secure attachment. And what happens in these cases is that the parents set a healthy bar. And that healthy bar is something that will be usually repeated in relationships in the next generation. So when you have healthy attachment, you're not looking for a herder. As a matter of fact, that herder is neither familiar or familial, because it's just not in the family repertoire. So there's nothing to repair and nothing of value or interest in picking a herder, because there's really nothing to repair. Okay, so when that doesn't go well, then there's something missing, and there's something, the missing thing is what keeps tugging at the psyche. I'm missing something, I'm not sure what it is, so I'll find a mom or a dad type figure, replicate the whole wound, very unconscious, and then I'll get into that relationship, attached to that person, and put myself through the pain of that dynamic, with the hope that the person will morph, the person will treat us better, and then we can gain our self-esteem back, and then we can disprove the horrible beliefs that we have about ourselves. It's a pretty complicated and painful journey, and that's why the mind map system of healing, so that instead of picking the herder to be your healer, you could pick your therapist to be your healer. A lot less complicated, a lot less financially expensive and emotionally expensive. You guys add it up. Divorces are a fortune, splitting property, a fortune, child support and so on and so forth, not to mention the toll on your mental health and years of therapy and sometimes therapy that doesn't really help and waste of time, waste of your psychic energy and so on and so forth. So the shortest distance between 2 points, I like to refer to Occam's razor because that's a definition of the shortest distance between 2 points is instead of dragging yourself through the what the Freud, instead of dragging yourself through this unconscious picking of your familiar and familial dynamic, pick yourself a great mind map therapist. We have a lot of wonderful, talented people on the team that are trained in my system, and they'll break it down for you so that you can learn and that you can heal and that you could process your feelings with somebody who knows what they're doing and not unconsciously lead you down the garden path of hope of healing and only to stab you yet once again. And I'd love to hear from you. It's always much more interesting when I get to talk to my audience and break it down a la the mind map and help people to understand. Number one, healing is possible. You do not have to keep repeating things. Number two, it doesn't have to take months or years. We keep it sweet and short in 10 sessions. Of course, if you need more than that, you're welcome to stay as long as you want, and you're welcome to take more time if necessary. And number three, we have different practitioners on the staff at different fee scales. And I've been toying around with the idea of doing a mind map seminar sometime soon. To hear from you, it would be a psychoeducational seminar that you would participate in via Zoom, and you would have your own, you don't have to give up your therapist. You would actually have your own therapist, either your own therapist or pick somebody from the team, or just simply learn and apply the principles to your life. My thought is that it would be over maybe 3 weekends. We would do panels number 1, 2, 3, maybe on a Sunday, and 4, 5, 6 the following Sunday, and 7, 8, 9 the following Sunday. And obviously it would be a lot more cost effective if we did it in a group. And that's one of my motivations, is to make this cost effective for people who cannot afford to see somebody on my team individually and would like to learn from me. And that way I can serve more people. And we would obviously have time for questions and answers and learn together. And I really would like to hear from you, because I'm very happy to start this group. I just want to know that there are people interested so we can get this started. And the theme of it would be delving into these childhood wounds and how they affect you and how they create these horrible core beliefs, and how to morph out of the mess and not fall back into the WTF of chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. So I want to hear from you. You can always write me at drjudy@psychologicalhealingcenter.com and express interest. I know I have a couple of people who are interested. Always a challenge to put together a seminar and please everyone's timetable. So I will do my best. Okay. I'm still hoping somebody will call in so that we could dissect the what, the Freud, and the unless part. And just to give people hope, there are people who actually want to heal, and they get incentivized to heal when they see that there's hope. And to me, hope means bringing consciousness to the unconscious and giving people a pathway to healing, because nobody wants to just talk about things for the sake of talking about it. They want a plan, they want a system, they want a step-by-step instructional how do we do this? How do we get through this? How do we heal so that we can be a healthier we in the case of couples therapy? There are people who really need to break down hard in order to realize that they are hurting and hurting the relationship so badly, and they will push to the brink. One of the challenges that I've been faced with is last ditched effort, couples who are on the brink of divorce. And there are many reasons for this. There's obvious ones are cheating and people who've used and abused alcohol, and that particular defense mechanism has become very destructive. And why are they there? Because again, back to the what the Freud, they're there because that dynamic feels familiar and familial. They don't know how to get out of it. It's not like they're deliberately trying to hurt themselves. It's just that, again, as I said, repeating myself again, I'm doing a what the Freud so that you could learn. They want to complete the psychological files. And this is where we can understand the psychological files, that when we are not complete with something, we will go over and over it until we're finished. Psychologically finished business is a closed chapter. For example, do you remember the letter that you mailed or the letter that you didn't mail? Do you remember the assignment that you have to do or the assignments that you already did? So what's my point here is that when there's something outstanding in our mind, if there's an unfinished business, we're going to remember the unfinished business. So that's why when the relationship is incomplete, when the relationship is unhealed, we keep going over and over. I hope you're getting the point of what the Freud is and why I call my show Dr. Judy WTF What the Freud, because we truly are in a very serious spin cycle. And now with this going viral, meaning that so many people are in trouble, emotional trouble, what's happening is a synergistic, I shouldn't even call it synergy, it's a negative synergistic effect where there's so many people who are unwell, and unwell people on a global level, macro level, we're now having a macro problem of disconnect. And these disconnects are obviously breaking down globally. Okay, you could see it every day on the news. So what happens with individual injuries, unhealed individual injuries become macro, and then these macro breakdowns become global. And so the original intention of the mind map was to heal global disconnect, but I found that that's not possible to do. You can't heal globally and on a macro level unless we all take the responsibility to heal individually. And that's the only way I know how. So in some sense, I'm happy that my original project called Join the Human Race, Healing Global Disconnect, felt out of my reach, because really the right thing for me to have done at the time and to be doing right now is to help people heal individually. And then we can address things more on a global basis, because that's what we're doing, is we're playing it out and it's getting ugly and bigger and macro. And let's go back to the basics and look at ourselves and our dynamics and take inventory on what happened and how we've been wounded. And yeah, thank you for calling in. So hello, you're on the couch with Dr. Judy.
Dr. Judy, this is Dale from Washington.
Oh, Dale, hi, how are you?
Hi. Her can't be the healer. I can't tell you how many times I tried to have a conversation or work something out with my dad who was a covert narcissist, and it would drive him to complete rage, or he would run away. And it was amazing how, if you tried to talk about his childhood, or there was an anniversary party I was throwing for them, and I was the MC, and I stood up to try to, and I asked him to give me some background on him so I could give him something, you know, for all of his friends and stuff. And he said, if you even say anything about that, I'm leaving. So,
well, you know, that's the thing about the person who's hurt, right? The hurt person becomes the herder because they're hurt and they don't know how to act differently. And when you poke at their childhood wounds, they run because they don't really trust that there's somebody that can know them and work with them without shaming them and blaming them and making it worse. It's sort of like, do you or anybody listening want to go into open heart surgery unless you're really confident that the doctor can not only open you up, but can fix you and close you up nicely? Would you take that risk if you didn't feel a sense of trust?
No. And the on the live chat, you're seeing a lot of people talk about eye contact, and that was another thing that's so. I see that, you know, in my whole dysfunctional family, which I have lots of siblings who followed along the same paths. Yeah. It was so tough getting into a family gathering. I mean, it's like everybody's, you know, I would love to just kick back and everybody have a good time, but no, they that sit there be glancing back and forth, and everybody was on eggshells, and it was kind of like, why are we even here? I mean, there was really.
No, it's sad. Logically, right, Dale? You're so right. Logically, why would you want to be there? Logically, why are they doing that? People don't understand, but it becomes this house of mirrors. You know, when you go into a circus and the mirrors are distorted, and you look in the mirror and you think, wait, am I that tall? Am I that? Is my face, you know, half stretched this way and the other stretched that way? It really is. To people who are hurt, the world is distorted. Their view of themselves and others are distorted. And you can see this very clearly with paranoid people who will look at you and say, hey, what are you looking at? Or what are you thinking right now? You're judging me, aren't you? You could see a lot of projection. And that's because of these childhood wounds.
I was a truth teller. I guess that was probably what got me in more trouble. And I could see through the BS, you know, and I would say, I'd call out people on things, and next thing you know, the flying monkeys would all jump on, and oh my God, the whole thing would just go. And it was like, it was repetitious over and over. I mean, throughout the whole life of this family. And it wasn't until my father passed away, and it was that I tuned into your show and learned your system, that I realized this whole thing was a game that was kind of a joke, and I just played along because I didn't know what the game was. And now that I've
right now that you know, okay, so what do you make of the game now that you know? Now that your mind is clear, so what's the game?
Well, I'm excited for your I think I said 10 step. I think you have a 9 step. Is it 9 or 10?
It's actually
I'm always mixed up.
But we do panel number 6, which is processing emotions in 2 sessions, because it's a heavy.
I think it's so critical that people understand, and I mentioned it one time before. I have a friend who was a psychological counselor, and we were talking about her business at one dinner, and I said, well, you've been doing this for quite some time. And she goes, oh yeah, and I have lots of people I've been working with for a long time. And I said, well, how long have you been working with some of these people? She goes, I have one client I've been working with for 18 years. And I thought, oh my God, I'd hate to be her client. You know, you got to have an end to this stuff and actually get your life together. And then when I saw your program, you actually get people to graduate to a sense of being a free person, healthy inside, and moving and looking forward to the future. And I just heard another program today where somebody said, if you're stuck in the past and looking to the past, that's what creates anxiety and depression. You're always stuck in your past and you're trying to heal you're not, and it's when you finally get healed and you can look forward. And gave some examples. Your brain has dopamine that you get a shot of excitement and say, I'm looking forward to going out to lunch today. That's looking forward. I'm looking forward to doing my project or working out and laying on the beach. That's looking forward. But if you're stuck in these family dynamics and you can't get it out of your mind, yes. That's why your program is so good. You don't want to be going to a counselor for 18 years. You want to learn what's up and solve it.
No, I mean, look, I've seen some people over a longer period of time. Some people, they've just lost everything, their spouses, children, and so on, and they're lonely. And so they genuinely need more than just 10 sessions. They need support. And I'm there. I'm not turning those people down, but we've got to go in with the intention of learning something. And so this is a psychoeducational type of healing process, if you will. And just the other day, I had a patient of mine say to me, and of course it made my heart sing, because she said, I've gotten more out of 3 sessions with you than the 10 years of therapy that I've had. And I was just so happy to know that, because even though I created this system, it's just so rewarding for me to see it working, because there really is a specific pathway, and it's not just piecemeal, changing behaviors, changing cognitions, medicating people, talking it out, crying it out. That's not it.
No, that's what everybody else wants to do. They want to deal with the symptoms and not get to the cause. Right. And in your program, walks you through the steps, takes you through, you graduate from one to the other. And next, all of a sudden, and all the way through that process, I know your goal is this. You're trying to get the light to turn on inside for them. Correct. Where they themselves come to a realization that, oh, I get it. Now I understand. It's not me that's the problem.
Right.
And I'm in full control of taking this and removing this and moving on with my life. And I really encourage anybody who is sitting on the sidelines thinking, well, should I not call Dr. Judy and get involved in that program, get that book, and don't hesitate anymore, because otherwise you're just stuck in the past. And
really
this way you
hard to make it available to people who say can't afford to see me individually. And I'm going to put this seminar together. I just want to hear from people that they're interested, because obviously I need a group to make this possible. But thank you, Dale, for that encouragement of the audience, because there are people that are on the fence, and I know people that will call me 2-3 years later saying, I've been listening to this for a long time and I'm finally ready. Okay, people are ready when they're ready, and so you can't push that. But I think that part of it is having some sort of trust in the system, so that when people, let's say, read my book and watch the videos, they could see what I'm talking about. It's not just random. They can see step number 1, identify the wounds, reactions, and coding. Step number 2, tear the old system down and understand the chaos defenses and the breakdowns. And step number 3, morph out of all the mess, process the feelings and morph out. So it's it almost sounds formulaic, and in some sense it is, because I've done it so many times now. I can see that how important it is to have this particular structure.
Well, it's like anything that's good. I mean, it's formulaic because it's a formula, and it works. I mean, if something's work, why change it? And your system works. Whereas everybody else gets all of these custom oddball directions that they go all over the place, but they don't resolve anything. It just keeps going on and on and on. And I think, my God, it's just all about, you need to go through a system that works, and this one's proven. That's why I'm just encouraging people to to jump on board.
Oh, thank you very much.
I'll let.
Go ahead.
I'm going to go ahead and let you talk and hope somebody else will call in.
Okay, no, I appreciate you're calling in. Always appreciate it, Dale. Thank you. And as far as what you were trying to do by waking up your father and the flying monkeys, they just won't have it because it's too painful for them to go there. They don't trust that it could be fixed. So, from as far as they're concerned, stop poking the bear, stop trying to open up the wounds and just go away already. So that's where they're coming from, just for you to have a little bit more of an understanding of what that's all about. So always appreciate you calling in. I'll elaborate a little bit more, and have a great evening, Dale. So also, a lot of my peers don't really appreciate this, because if they don't have an effective system themselves, or they have a part of a system, they're not exactly going to like the idea that I'm doing therapy in 10 sessions whereby they're hanging on to their patients for 10, 12, 18 years. And they're probably thinking, geez, what kind of model is that? What kind of an idiot doctor is it who wants to cure people so quickly that she loses that patient in 10 sessions? Well, I'll tell you what kind of an idiot doctor this is. It's a person who, number one, wants to get down to business, and number two, from an economic point of view, understands that people appreciate and value a system that gets results quicker. And so when people understand and they go through the system and heal, then guess what happens to my business? My business of psychology goes up, because people refer other people and they talk about this. Now, if you're in therapy for 18 years and you're still struggling and you don't feel that your methodology is really intact, what incentive are you going to have to tell all your friends about it? So what I'm saying is that when something is in integrity, when something is well thought out, then that it's going to generate interest. It's going to generate people that are truly interested in healing. And then I feel like I don't have to compromise myself and my integrity and my therapy by dragging things out. There's no need for that at all. And so I think a lot of the traditional therapy, to their credit, they're educated, they say the right things, they have skills. They have some skills that I don't have. For example, a lot of psychologists, psychotherapists have skills in EMDR and are probably better cognitive behavioral therapists than I am, or DBT therapists. And of course, psychiatrists understand medication, and I have a lot of respect for it. But I think what's missing for me about that is that all of that beautiful knowledge and all of that brain power just needs to be organized into a system. And that's why I enjoy training professionals into the mind map system, because they already have the knowledge base. And then when they can structure what they know into this mind map system, they see that things go quicker, more to the point for them. And then they enjoy their work. Because I could tell you, I did traditional therapy because I didn't have a mind map 30 years ago. And it was somewhat frustrating. And sometimes I felt that I wasn't able to take the person as far as I wanted to. And sometimes I felt that the therapy was getting sort of, redundant. And that's why I really appreciate having this structure. So if you haven't already gotten a copy of my book or the video series, if you want to partake in individual therapy with me or a member of my team, if you want to enroll in the seminar, please reach out so that I can organize that. And I really appreciate you listening. And now you understand that the herder cannot be the healer unless you heal and that person heals, and then you bring two healed people together. So thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.
And if you've enjoyed my show, please subscribe to my channel. If you need help, please call the number below.